Hello everyone, welcome back. We're on to the news video here to discuss. We're discussing some of the signings, waiver updates, and injury lists that have happened over the past couple of days. Plus, I'm going to give you my opinion on my 6 winners and 6 losers of the trade deadline. Definitely don't forget to stay tuned because some of them may surprise you. We'll get to all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the NHL Talking Channel. Now before I begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for all of your support. I've never been able to do with all of you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below, and don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below so I'll discuss in today's video. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the signings that have happened over the past couple of days. There's actually been a couple of interesting signings. We got around to a couple that happened over on trade deadline day, but we also missed a couple, and then we've had a couple of signings since then, so we'll quickly get to all of that. First, we'll start with a couple of signings the Nashville Predators made. They signed Gustav Grigas, who is a goaltender, an undrafted one, to a 1-year contract to finish out the season with the Nashville Predators. Now, like we said, he's a goaltender. He should be probably like the 4th or 5th stringer there in Nashville. He's been splitting time between the ECHL and the AHL so far this year. Did not have a really good AHL game. He's been doing pretty well in the ECHL, so he's more of like a 4th, 5th string goaltender can play in the ECHL, so it's just a little bit more goaltender depth for Nashville Predators that they signed, so really good stuff there. They also signed 2 of their NHL players to extensions. First, Mark Jankowski got a 2-year extension with the AAV of $800,000. Jankowski's actually worked really well as like a bomb 6'4". Jankowski, Sherwood, McCarron have actually been all really good bomb 6'4s over the past couple of years. So far this year, in 16 games, Jankowski has 6 points. Last year had 12 points in 50 games, so he's looking pretty good. He also has 47 points in 40 AHL games this year, so he's looking like a pretty good player. He should be able to be a solid bomb 6'4" over the next couple of years. I could also see him be potentially like a solid spare forward if it gets to that too. So he can be a solid 4th line forward, he can be a solid spare forward. He's a versatile forward. He can definitely be called upon if there's injuries. So that's a very good pickup there for the Predators that signed Mark Jankowski to a 2-year extension. Then we also saw Nashville Predators sign another guy to an extension, and that was Dante Fabbro. After last year, just after a deadline, signing him to a 1-year deal with an AAV of $2.5 million. They do the exact same thing this year. Fabbro signs a 1-year deal with an AAV of $2.5 million. They'll begin to start next year. It's a pretty good deal for Fabbro to get another $2.5 million contract, but I think if I'm correct, that this deal should lead him to UFA status, so that'll be interesting to see. So not this offseason, but next offseason, Fabbro could be a UFA. So far this year, he's actually had a decent season. He's putting up better numbers than he did last year. Last year, he had 2 goals, 9 assists, 11 points, was a -4 in 79 games. This year has 2 goals, 10 assists, 12 points. Hasn't healthy scratched a couple of times in 53 games, but is also a +11. So he's got more points. He's a better +-. Even though he's playing less games, he's still doing quite well this year. So I think that's fantastic, and I still think he will be a potential trade candidate, not only in the offseason, but potentially next year's trade deadline if the Predators aren't doing too well. So it's a good signing, getting Fabbro locked up for next year, and they could definitely see exactly what they need to do with him. But this is a pretty good signing in my opinion for Nashville. So they get Jankowski signed, they get Fabbro signed, they add some more goalie depth. So that's a pretty good moves there for the Nashville Predators. We talked about Parker Weatherspoon on my trade deadline live video. He signed a 1-year deal with the AAV of $800,000. The Bruins also signed Joey Abbott, who is a left winger, undrafted player, to a 1-year deal to finish out the season with Boston with the AAV of $775,000. Abbott has been playing over in the AHL with the Bruins AHL affiliate over the past little while. He's put up 3 goals, 12 points in 42 AHL games this year. He's done all right. He hasn't been fantastic, but he's done all right. He's a serviceable player. So they signed him to a 2-way contract, and I think he could get into some NHL games if there are some injuries, but that's a pretty good sign there for the Bruins. We also saw the Flames give an extension, signing Kevin Rooney to a 1-year extension with the AAV of $1.3 million, which is exactly the same AAV he's making right now. Rooney's been mostly an AHL forward during his time in Calgary. I mean, he was acquired last year. He played in 51 AHL games last year, putting up 17 points, and then had an assist in 17 NHL games. This year has a goal in 15 NHL games and a goal in 4 AHL games, so he hasn't been overly productive, and he has definitely dealt with his fair share of injuries this year, starting the season off really badly with an injury. But he's a solid 4th line center. He's helped the New York Rangers a little while ago, including the run to the Eastern Conference Final a couple of years ago, so that's a pretty good pickup there for the Flames, and hopefully keeping him around, he should be able to be a solid bomb 6'4", so that's a pretty good pickup there for Calgary. Then we also saw a couple of other guys sign after the trade deadline. First, Louis Domingue in New York got an extension, 1-year, 1-way deal with the AAV of $775,000. That's a pretty good pickup there for the Rangers. Domingue's basically been the 3rd-string goaltender ever since he came over last offseason. Last year, got into 45 games in Hartford, put up a .911 save percentage and a 2.50 goals against average. Looked pretty good there. So far this this year, he's gone to one NHL game, giving up a .962 save percentage and a 1 goal against average. So he actually looked pretty good in his one NHL game when he was called upon. In 24 AHL games, he's put up a 2.65 GAA and 910 save percentage this year. So he's having fantastic AHL numbers. He's having pretty good NHL numbers. And I think the Rangers really like having a three-headed monster of Gannett, of Shesterkin, Quick, and Domingue. So I am completely okay with this signing. It's a great sign there for the Rangers. I think he should be able to do really well for New York. I saw also the Blackhawks sign Landon Slaggert, who was their third-round pick back in 2020, to a 2-year ELC with the AAV of $913,000. And the deal is for the remainder of this year plus next year. Now, Slaggert's been playing over in the NCAA last year. Had a decent season, putting up 7 goals, 13 points in 35 games, but this year has been having a phenomenal season, putting up 20 goals and 31 points in 36 games, nearly a point per game. He looks like a really good player. Eventually, I think he could be a solid third-line winger, so that's a really good sign there for the Blackhawks as they get one of their younger players locked up on an ELC. Then we also saw the Carolina Hurricanes extend for Brendan Lemieux. Lemieux, who recently went on waivers, but stayed up with the Carolina Hurricanes. He's a winger. He's a fourth-line, physical, hard-hitting forward. He signs a 1-year deal with the AAV of $725,000 to remain in Carolina. Now, I think this is just a good thing for him. He's able to stay in Carolina, keep some job security. So far this year, he's only gone into 25 NHL games. Definitely been a healthy scratch quite some time. And he's put up 2 goals and 3 points. So not really a whole bunch of really good amount of game time this year, but he's looked good in the games he's gone into, so that's a really good depth addition there for the Carolina Hurricanes to keep him around. Then we also saw the Dallas Stars send Justin Ertl, who was their 2021 third-round pick, a left winger, to a 3-year ELC with the AAV of $868,000, and they'll begin at the start of next year. So it's a very good sign there for the Stars. I mean, Ertl has been playing over in the OHL this year. He's actually put out some pretty good numbers last year at 14 goals and 36 points in 46 games. Pretty decent numbers, but this year has 25 goals and 66 points in 61 games. So he's had a fantastic season this year, pretty good season, and I think he should eventually be a solid bottom six forward. So really good stuff there for Ertl. And lastly here, we saw the Trade Rumours signed Tim Gettinger, who's a decent AHL forward, to a 1-year contract extension with the AAV of $775,000 to keep some depth in that organization. So that's a pretty good deal for the Red Wings. Gettinger, over the past 2 seasons, has mostly been an AHL player. He got into 8 games 2 years ago with New York Rangers. Then last year, playing 52 AHL games for the New York Rangers, AHL affiliates, putting up 35 points. This year has 25 points in 51 AHL games with the Red Wings affiliates, so he's been a really good depth addition. He can be called upon as a call-up option if they run into enough injuries, so it's a pretty good pickup there for the Detroit Red Wings to sign him to an extension. So those are all of your signs from over the past couple days. Lots of interesting ones, and definitely there's some that are going to be more important than others, but still lots of interesting signings. Going over to a quick waiver update from the past little while now. After the trade deadline, players who are claimed on waivers can't play for the teams for the rest of the regular season or the playoffs. So you probably won't see very many players not only be placed on waivers, but also be claimed off of waivers. But we did have one interesting waiver placement yesterday, and that was Jonathan Gruden with Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh's getting a little bit more healthier. I think Nieto's about to come back soon. I think Russ recently came back, so they needed to make some more space. So they moved Jonathan Gruden on waivers. Now, this is probably just to be sent to the minors. I don't think anyone will claim him. Gruden's a decent AHL player. He's not a solid NHL forward, and I would even doubt that if this was still before a trade deadline and Gruden was on waivers, he would probably still wind up being cleared. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. I mean, there's always a chance, I guess, but I'll probably expect Gruden to clear later today. Like I said, at this point in time, I don't know exactly the outcome of this, but I would expect Gruden to probably clear. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And then going over to a quick injury update here from the past couple of days. Zach Parise has a lower body injury, out day-to-day for Colorado. Travis Zimmer, undisclosed injury, out day-to-day for Arizona. Jacob Trouba has a lower body injury. It's going to be out for the next 2 weeks. That's a bad blow for the Rangers. Derek Forbort has an undisclosed injury, out for the season, so that's a horrible blow there for the Bruins blue line. Kent Johnson has a shoulder injury. He's going to be out for the next 6 months. We already talked about that. He's rested the season, so 6 months puts him at a timeline of around September, which is the start of training camp, so hopefully Johnson will be good to go for there. Then we also saw Jansen Harkins have a hand injury. He's going to be out for an unknown period of time for the Pittsburgh Penguins, but we still Nikia Zaitsev in Chicago, Foligno in Minnesota, McTavish in Anaheim, and Terry in Anaheim all be cleared to play, so it's really good news there. We then saw Ekblad have a lower body injury for Florida, Rodriguez have a lower body injury for Florida, and they're both going to be out for an unknown period of time. Mitch Marner has a lower body injury and is out day-to-day for the Leafs. Jordan Greenway has an undisclosed injury out for an unknown period of time for the Buffalo Sabres. But we saw Pavel Dorofeev and Paul Cotter in Vegas, Kempe in LA, Lindholm in Boston, and Thompson in Buffalo all be cleared to play and get back into game action, so that's really good stuff there. And then we also saw Brian Ross be cleared to play by Pittsburgh, and Jake Middleton be cleared to play by the Minnesota Wild. But we saw Dante Fabbro have an upper body injury out for an unknown period of time. Jack Drury have a lower body injury out for an unknown period of time. Logan O'Connor has a hip injury out for the rest of the regular season, so it's a horrible blow for the Avalanche to lose a penalty kill specialist like him. And Thatcher Demko's undisclosed injury is going to be out for a day-to-day period of time. And then we also saw Aaron Ekblad's lower body injury was updated. He's going to be out for the next 2 weeks. Tom Wilson's upper body injury out for an unknown period of time. Matt Martin has a lower body injury out for a day-to-day period of time. Josh Norris, a shoulder injury, is going to keep him out for the rest of the season, so that's a horrible blow for the Senators. Ricky Charter has upper body injury and is out for a 1 week's period of time. And then we saw Chris Wagner in Colorado, Anderson in LA, Howden in Vegas, and Oshie in Washington all be cleared to play and should be able to get back into game action in the not too distant future. So those are some really good injury updates there for the past couple of days. Hopefully those guys who are still injured, guys like Ricky Charter, Aaron Ekblad, Jacob Trouba, Jordan Greenway, Mitch Marner, Thatcher Demko, hopefully those guys are all able to get back into game action not just in the future. But still really bad to see guys like Norris and O'Connor go down for the season. So horrible blows there, but good to see guys like Middleton, Rust, Anderson, Kempe, Cotter, Dorofeev, Terry all get back into game action. Hopefully those guys are able to be huge pieces for their teams going forward. And lastly, we're going over to the trade rumor part of the video. Now over the next week, the next 3 weeks of trade rumors, I'm basically going to have all be linked to the trade deadline somehow. So in today's video, I'm going to be discussing the 6 winners and 6 losers, in my opinion, of the trade deadline. So I've given a lot of thoughts to this. I've given who I think won over the course of the trade deadline period and lost over the course of the trade deadline period. I'm going back to the start of February, and I'll even include the Nikita Zadorov trade to Vancouver. That was a pretty big one too. So including all of those trades, I'm going to give you my 6 winners and 6 losers of the deadline. So I'm going to go loser then winner, loser then winner, going from worst winner and loser to who I think actually won and lost the trade deadline. So I'm going to go 6 through 1, and I'm going to go loser, winner, all the way up to 1. So definitely don't forget to stay tuned for that, and I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this and who you think would be winners and losers in your opinion of the trade deadline. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. But I'm going to start my first loser of the thing, my 6th loser, who I thought didn't do overly well this year at the trade deadline, is the Boston Bruins. Not too surprising there. The Bruins did not have an overly fantastic deadline. There was a lot of talk they wanted to make a big splash on their defense. They wanted to make some big upgrades at the center position to try and improve that center depth. They wanted to maybe add another forward. There was a lot of talk that they could have moved Ullmark. I'm not sure if that's exactly what they needed to do, but that could have at least helped them get something huge. And I consider it would have been a huge package they would have gone for Ullmark. But instead, Ullmark decides to block a trade with his no movement clause, and the Bruins don't make too many moves. They added Patrick Maroon for a 6th round pick and a decent AHL player. They add Andrew Peeke from the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Jacob Zaboral on a 3rd round pick. That's it. That's all they do. Peake's a good addition. He can help on the 3rd pair. Maroon's a good addition. He can provide some physicality on the 4th line, definitely in the playoffs. But that's still not exactly the huge upgrades that I think this team wants to make this trade deadline. And I think without upgrading their defense a huge amount, getting into the top 4 defensemen, without getting that top 6 or top 9 center that they've been looking for, I think they really didn't do very much well this trade deadline. So interesting moves there, but the Bruins didn't really do a whole bunch. Going over to my 6th winner, and this might be a little bit surprising to someone, I'm picking the New Jersey Devils. I liked what they did in the trade deadline. I liked how they made some moves. Their goaltending had been the focal point of their problems this year, so they went out, they changed it. They got Jake Allen from Montreal. They got Kaapo Kähkönen from San Jose. They moved Vitek Vanecek to the San Jose Sharks. I think I like all those moves. There was a lot of talk that they wouldn't be able to sign Tyler Toffoli. They have a lot of good offense, so with that in mind, they moved Toffoli for a 2nd and a 3rd round pick. It's not fantastic, but they can use those picks at a future date to try and improve this team even better. Even if they don't make the playoffs this year, they can use those picks to make the playoffs next year. So that's a fantastic move for New Jersey. They also got a 4th round pick in order for moving Colin Miller. I think that's a pretty good deal for them too. So they moved a couple of pending UFAs, got some pretty decent picks in return. They got a couple of decent goaltenders. I think this is setting up for them to have Allen Markstrom tandem next year, as long as they go after Markstrom in the offseason. I definitely think they will let Kähkönen go, and they'll try and get a regular starter. They'll have Allen and Markstrom for next year, and then once Allen's contract gets up, they'll have one of their younger players like Dawes or Schmid be their their backup to Markstrom. So I really do like what the Devils did. I think they set themselves up really good for the future. They changed up their goaltending, which they need to do before trade deadline, and they're able to, in my eyes, make some pretty good moves in moving Tyler Toffoli and Colin Miller. So some pretty good moves there. Even if they don't make the playoffs this year, I think they set themselves up pretty good for next year. So I think that was the team who was a winner at this year's trade deadline. Going over to another loser, you've got the Detroit Red Wings. I was expecting them to do a little bit. They didn't do anything. Steve Yzerman decided to not do much. This Red Wings team has lost 5 in a row now. They're teetering on a playoff spot. I thought after being in a playoff spot, entering the week into the deadline, I thought they would have been adding some pieces. They thought they could have easily added like a top 4 defenseman, maybe add another top 9 winger. Instead, they subtract Clem Costin from the roster and add depth defenseman Ram Shimmick. That's their only move that they made. So I was really disappointed by the Detroit Red Wings. I thought they would have gone a little bit more, especially given the fact they're in a playoff race, but they do wind up not doing too much. I wasn't expecting them to move first round picks or things, but I was expecting them to go a little bit more forward. So I'm a little bit surprised with them and a little bit disappointed. They're my 5th loser. Going over to my 5th winner, that's the Calgary Flames. I really liked what they've done over this course of this year. I mean, entering this year, we said that there was a lot of pending UFAs. They may need to change over a new leaf, and they have. I mean, I liked what they've done. They moved Zadorov for a 3rd and 5th round pick. They moved Lindholm for Bruce Wicks, Yermo, Kuzmenko, I think it was a 1st and a 3rd. They moved Hanifin for a conditional 1st, a conditional 3rd that could become a 2nd, and prospect Naomi Romanov. They moved Tyler Toffoli in the offseason for Sharon Govich and a 3rd. They moved Chris Tanev for a 2nd, I think it was a potential 3rd, and Grushnikov. So I like what they've done. That blue line probably going to need a little bit of work over the next few years. It's definitely not what it once was. I would not be surprised if in the next year, either by the offseason or deadline, we saw Rasmus Anderson be moved. I could see next year at the deadline we see Mangiapane, Sharon Govich, or Kuzmenko be moved. So I think the Flames are going to go for a little bit of a retool, and I think they will need a little bit more time before they are able to become a competitive team. But still, I really do like this move. They set themselves up well for the future, and they definitely moved a couple of decent UFAs. So I really do like the Flames. They're my 5th winner. My 4th loser, in my opinion, is the Tampa Bay Lightning. I do not like what they did at the trade deadline. We usually see them make big splashes. I mean, year over year, they made some big splashes. This year, they really didn't. I mean, Dumba's a really good forward, but he's more of a 3rd pair of defenseman, and he's definitely like the top 4 upgrade that Tampa Bay team has been looking for. So I think it was a decent addition there for the Bolts. They didn't have to give up much, but still, it's not the huge addition that I thought they would be getting. On top of that, they get Anthony Duclair, who should be able to help in the top 9, but is he really going to be able to help that much? So as much as the Bolts have been consistent cup contenders, I'm not overly sure that they will be, and now they're cheering on a playoff spot too. So not overly confident in Tampa, and I didn't like exactly what they did, so I'm going to put them as my 4th loser. My 4th winner, I got to give to Colorado. They did a lot of good things this offseason. I really liked what they did. I feel like what they did before the trade deadline, they added Casey Milstead for Bowen Byram. I think that's a very good move there for the Avalanche, finally getting themselves a 2nd-line center to add some more depth after Byram left. They were able to get Sean Walker, who should be able to help in that top 4 or top 6 on the blue line. They also get a couple of decent bottom 6 forwards in Duhaime and Trennan, who are going to be hard to play against in the playoffs. So I really do like what the Avalanche brought in the trade deadline. I think they are fantastically set up to go for a deep playoff run. So they're the 4th winner in my books. The 3rd loser in my books will be the St. Louis Blues. I was expecting them to do a lot of things. There's a lot of talk they could move Peronovich, they could move Saad, they could move one of their defensemen like a Parayko or a Krug. They could move some of their pending UFAs like Verana or Scandella or Kapanen or Blais, and they wind up doing nothing really, except for moving Malcolm Subban to Columbus for future considerations. They didn't do anything at this year's trade deadline. I mean, last year, if you look at them, they moved Tarasenko and they moved O'Reilly, and they got a couple of picks in return. They got Zach Dean in return for Ivan Barbashev. They're still quite a bit out of the playoffs right now, and I would like to see them sell off a little bit. So it's really interesting to see that, but those are going to have to be some names we watch out for in the offseason. But still, interesting move by the Blue Jays to not really do much, and I'm going to put them as my 3rd loser. My 3rd winner, I had the Vegas Golden Knights. I know this might be a surprise to some of them, as a lot of people do have them as like the big winners, but I think they did do a lot of good things. Adding Hurdle is not only a good move now, but it's a good move for the future. I really do like that addition for the Vegas Golden Knights. I also like the addition of Noah Hanifin, especially if they can re-sign him. Mantha should only be a rental, but I think he's going to be fitting fantastically, especially in the playoffs on the top 9. So I really do like Vegas and what they've done over the past little while, and I think they should be able to be a really good playoff team should they get in there. But still, it's a really interesting trade deadline for the Golden Knights, and one I think they definitely did win. Then you also got the second loser on my loser board, and that would be the LA Kings. I was expecting them to do at least a little bit. I mean, they're in a division where the Vancouver Canucks, even though it was a little while ago, added Elias Lindholm, added Nikita Zadorov. You're in a division where the Edmonton Oilers, right before deadline, added Stetcher, Henrique, and Carrick. You're in a division where the Vegas Golden Knights, who are right behind you in the Pacific Division, added Hanifin, Hurdle, and Mantha. You're in a division where all these teams made huge major upgrades, and you really don't do anything. There was a lot of talk that Allmark was going to be going to LA. He nixed the trade. So it does sound like they were trying to do something, and I think adding Allmark would have been a really good improvement there for the LA Kings, but still, it wasn't what they needed to do. So they didn't do anything. They really just stand pat. They also didn't really have the cap space to do much, and as much as that's really due to cap space and not for lack of trying, I do think that they're one of the losers of this trade deadline, so I'm going to put them as my second loser. My second winner, in my opinion, is the Carolina Hurricanes. I think I really like what they've done. They acquired Jake Gensel. They finally are able to go for it. They don't usually give up huge asking prices for rentals. They finally do. They have to move a couple of decent prospects, Michael Bunting, a potential first-round pick as long as they make the Cup final. But still, I think the Carolina Hurricanes really did some really good stuff. But adding Gensel, who's also a proven playoff performer, so this is a fantastic move there for the Hurricanes. They also added Evgeny Kuznetsov at half of his contract retained, so adding Kuznetsov, who's also a proven playoff performer, can help us like a second-line center. I think he could be a fantastic piece there for the Hurricanes. So very fantastic additions there for the Hurricanes, and Kuznetsov and Gensel. They already have a really good defensive core. They just got Frederik Andersen back, so long as he is able to be solid in net, I think this Carolina Hurricanes team could go very far this year, and I really do like what they did at the deadline. So they're my second winners. The team who I think had the worst trade deadline, in my opinion, might be a surprise to you, the Arizona Coyotes. I would have liked them to do a lot more. They moved Jason Zucker, they moved Matt Dumba. Those were two guys who a lot of people were expecting to be moved, but they also didn't eat any money on their salaries and only got a 6th and a 5th round pick for them. I mean, they got a better return for Troy Stetcher than they did for Zucker and Dumba, and I think that's really disappointing. I was expecting Zucker to get like a 2nd, maybe a 3rd round pick. I was expecting Dumba to get probably not 1st, so I could have seen him get like a 2nd or 3rd round pick. And if you have the opportunity, you're a low-end team, you're a team who has cap space, you're a team who has the ability to retain money, I thought they would have definitely been able to retain money and try and get the best return they could, and instead they don't really do that. They give up the full salary, and they wind up moving Zucker for a 6th and Dumba in a 7th for a 5th. I mean, that's really disappointing in my opinion. I'm also a little bit surprised that Bukestad stayed. I'm a little bit surprised that Kerfoot stayed. I thought that those guys could have been moved. I also thought they could have used some of their draft capital like they did last year in the offseason with Deshaun Nursey to add some pieces to their deadline too. I mean, I would like to see him try and add a younger player who could definitely help this team out right now, but long term too. They didn't do that. So all in all, I think the Arizona Coyotes had a pretty bad deadline, and I do consider them the worst team at the deadline. The best team at the deadline, meanwhile, in my books, is the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets, in my opinion, had a fantastic deadline. You go back to early February, they added Sean Monahan. They also added Tyler Toffoli, which makes that forward group 100% more lethal, especially in the division where you had the Avalanche and the Stars, who have really complete forward groups. You also have Miller, who can be a solid 6th, 7th D on a stacked Jets blue line, so they add some more defensive depth. I really like what the Jets did this year's trade deadline, and I think adding Monahan, who should be a solid second-line center, adding Toffoli, who's a top 6 goal scorer, adding Miller, who should be a solid third pair of defense, and I think I really like what they did, and I think those teams are probably the best teams at the trade deadline. So it was really interesting to note, it was really interesting to see, but those are my 6 winners and 6 losers of the trade deadline. So just to recap, 6 losers: Boston is number 6, Detroit is number 5, Tampa is number 4, St. Louis is number 3, LA is number 2, and Arizona is my big loser of the trade deadline. And my 6 winners: New Jersey is number 6, Calgary is number 5, Colorado is number 4, Vegas is number 3, Carolina is number 2, and Winnipeg is my big winners at the trade deadline. So definitely, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on who you think were the biggest winners and losers of the trade deadline. Was it Vegas, Winnipeg, Colorado? Who do you think were the biggest winners? Was it Arizona, LA, St. Louis, Boston? Who do you think were the biggest losers? Definitely, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on who you think were the biggest winners down in the comment section below. And what do you think about the waiver update, injury update, and signing updates in the past couple of days? Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on all that down in the comment section below. So I'm going to talk about for today. Remember to like this video, and if you're like to subscribe down below. Thank you for all your support. I'll never be able to with all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below, and don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below, so I'll discuss today's video. Also a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that, so if you check that out, I'll leave a link to that in the description below, and I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.